Did you know that God's Learning Channel is available on a wide variety of different platforms? For starters, GLC can be watched in parts of Texas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Colorado by cable or antenna. GLC is also available to watch on our Galaxy 19 direct-to-home satellite equipment throughout North America with no subscription fees. Great for viewers in rural areas with no internet connection. Our free broadcast and program archives are available via 24/7 web streaming on our website at glctv.tv. For our online friends, GLC Radio and audio podcasts are available for free streaming throughout iTunes, TuneIn, or Shoutcast on your computer or mobile device. Likewise, our YouTube channel contains hundreds of free video clips that you can easily share with your friends and family. You can also watch our live broadcast or program archives of your favorite episodes directly on your television with an affordable subscription-free device called Roku, containing thousands of channels to choose from. We urge our viewers to take advantage of these various ways to watch or listen to GLC, and we ask that you spread the word to your friends and family. We can't continue to grow without your help.
Well, welcome to Update, and we found out someplace besides Roswell could get a lot of snow.
Yeah, actually Jerusalem is getting a lot of snow. Israel is getting a severe winter storm, just like the East Coast did.
Whender's that storm moved over there?
I wonder.
I know where I grew up in Manassas, Virginia, got slammed over the weekend.
Yes, it did.
No, it did.
Okay, I never grew up. I admit it, but I lived there.
She was born there.
Well, yeah. My formative years were in Manassas.
That's right.
Which God used to give me a love for history, for which I am so extremely grateful, because I realize that this lack of love for history is one of the reasons that the church has gotten so off base on our beliefs.
And it's one reason that our young people today, our younger generations, have no concept of who they are, of where they came from, and to whom they owe much.
And to why this nation has in the past been such a great nation, and what has been happening that has been eroding that consistently.
Right.
It's very grievous to me to hear that young people are embracing socialism.
Oh, I know
because they
it.
don't understand what socialism stands for. It would be good if they would go, I don't know, live for a year in a socialist country and see how that works for them.
They didn't live during the communist years, where millions of people were executed because
there's no freedom.
There's no freedom.
Okay, so I had the extreme privilege of hosting a Light of the Southwest this morning with Pastor Umberto Porras and a dear friend of his who is, well, he was born in Italy, but he and his wife have been missionaries down into Mexico for 29 years.
Wow.
His name is Renato Gaglione. You'll love him.
He's precious.
It's a great story, and I had so much fun with those guys this morning. So much pure word. Pure word.
Hallelujah.
And so why are you telling us that?
Because it's on tonight.
Oh, okay. All right.
It is on tonight at 8 p.m. Central. Light of the Southwest.
Okay.
Don't miss it. Be there or be square and miss out on a blessing. Right?
Yes.
You have a letter, Mr.
I
Kapur?
got a letter. It's a good letter. It says, we have enjoyed GLC for over 14 years. My prayers, God's blessings on you and the ministry. Prayerfully, CP in Cisco, Texas.
Amen.
That's a long time to be
Thank
watching.
you, CP. Yeah, it
We
is.
receive
Almost
those
half our
prayers
life.
of blessing.
Yeah.
Amen.
Almost half our life in GLC.
You know what I've been thinking so much about is how when God puts pressure on anything, it's like squeezing an orange. If you squeeze an orange, you're not going to get lemon juice. You're going to get orange juice, eh? You squeeze an apple, you're going to get apple cider, not orange juice.
Or apple juice.
Yeah, you'll get apple juice if you add water. Same thing happens with us. If we get put under pressure and what comes out is fear, then that's what's within us. He really showed me something really cool this weekend. He just brought to mind a scripture that I've known all my life. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. And he says, you know why? You know why that is, Amy? This is me talking with God. It's because God speaking I don't have a spirit of fear. I can't give you a spirit of fear, but I can give you a spirit of power, a spirit of love, and I can give you a sound mind. But I am incapable of giving you a spirit of fear. So if you feel fear coming out when you get squozing, that ain't coming from the Lord.
Squozing.
Squozing.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Don't get squoze.
Don't get squoze. Nope.
Well, here's an encouraging word. It says, he is in the midst of the fire. Daniel 3:17 and 18, and 23 through 25. If that's the case, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your gods, nor will we worship the gold image which you've set up. And these three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished, and he rose in haste and spoke, saying to his counselors, did we not cast three men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said to the king, true, O king. Well, look, he answered, I see four men loose, not bound, walking in the midst of the fire, and they're not hurt. And the form of the fourth is like the Son of God. In our study of the First Testament, you know it as the Old Testament maybe, appearances of the pre-incarnate Yeshua, Jesus, we find ourselves in the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These three men refused to bow and worship another God besides the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. While they knew that God was able to deliver them, they also knew that he might choose not to do so, and whether he delivered them or not had no influence on their loyalty to him. These three faithful Hebrews were convinced that idolatry was a non-starter for them, no matter what. Their unquestionable loyalty brought wrath upon their heads. Nebuchadnezzar's violent rage moved him to increase the furnace fires 7 times.
Wow.
Isn't this the crux of the matter for all of us who live by faith? Whether he delivers us or not? Wasn't this the Lord's example in the Garden of Gethsemane? And don't we know that this kind of resolution will increase the intensity of the attacks against us? Our faithful obedience and loyalty under pressure is the most powerful testimony we can give of our love and faith in God. And one way or another, Yeshua, Jesus, will be standing there in the fire with us, just as he was with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were delivered, but what really stands out is that they didn't make their deliverance an issue with God. Will you?
Okay, we did not plan that. I had no idea what her devotion was about. Faith and fear. How do you think they felt when they were cast into the furnace? You know, in Scripture, we're not allowed to fear.
Yeah.
There's one thing that we are told to fear: God Himself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they stood as they were bound, which didn't happen like that. Where they were bound, drugged to the furnace, watching it being heated up 7 times its normal heat, knowing that they were going to be cast into it. Where was their fear? Their fear was in God alone. And that's where our fear has to be as well.
That's right. That's right.
We're not allowed to fear the faces of men or what man can do to us. And that's easier said than done.
Oh, it is.
But that's why when we get squoze, it's our opportunity to allow God to show us what's really in our heart. When we think that we're here, but He knows we're not there, we're way back here. In His mercy, in His grace, He shows us what's really, truly hidden in our hearts so that we have the opportunity to get rid of it and move on with Him. Okay, we've got a follow-up on,
Let me say
yes?
one word. You know, it's a pleasure being 83 years old and living with you two, because between the two of you, you keep me straightened out in the Lord.
You get it from one side and the other, huh?
Yeah.
We even
Okay.
make him sit between us at the dinner table.
Right.
Okay, we've got a follow-up on the Dafna Meir story. The 16-year-old Arab terrorist, Murad Badir Abdullah Adis, who on January 17th stabbed to death Dafna Meir at the entrance to her home in Otniel, southern Judea, was inspired to launch his murderous terrorist attack by Palestinian TV. The Israeli security agency, that's the Shin Bet, made the revelation on Sunday, noting that the shows he watched on Palestinian TV presented Israel as executing young Palestinians in a warped twist on how security forces have killed attacking terrorists to save lives. On the day of the attack, under the influence of the TV shows, the 16-year-old decided to conduct a stabbing attack with the goal of murdering a Jew. Given the proximity of Otniel to his hometown, he chose it as his target.
This case brings to mind that of a Bedouin citizen of Israel who conducted an attack on Beersheba's central station last October, murdering a 19-year-old IDF soldier and wounding 9 others before being killed. In the weeks before the attack, that terrorist too watched Palestinian TV and was motivated by it to murder Jews. Countless other examples of attackers being incited by the Palestinian Authority and other organizations on social media abound.
Meir's murderer, Adis, who was arrested last Tuesday, was not only influenced by Palestinian TV, but apparently also by his family. The father of the teenage Arab terrorist who murdered the mother of 6 in her home on Sunday night has expressed pride over his son's gruesome actions. Speaking to Palestinian media, Adis's father said he was proud of his son for stabbing the unarmed nurse to death.
Dafna Meir was buried amid tearful eulogies from her children, husband, friends, and relatives. Around 200 people took part in the funeral procession that began at Otniel in the southern region of Judea and ended 2 hours later in Jerusalem. Dafna leaves behind her 4 biological children, Ranana, 17, Ahava, 10, Akiva, 15, and Noah, 11, as well as her 2 adopted children, Yair, 6, and Yaniv, 4. She also leaves behind her grieving husband, Natan.
An initial investigation of the attack indicates the terrorist arrived at her home on the northern edge of the town as Meir was painting her front door, with 3 of her daughters inside on the ground floor. The terrorist pounced on her with a knife, and the children, having heard their mother's shouts, came upstairs where they witnessed her murder.
After the terrorists fled the scene, the eldest daughter, Ranana, called her father and informed him of the attack. Initially, she told him her mother was seriously wounded as relayed by medics, but after several minutes, as the enormity of the attack became clear, she broke into tears and explained to her father that her mother had been pronounced dead. Eulogizing her mother at the cemetery, Ranana said, "You left us with a great empty space. We won't drink tea together. You won't accompany to the huppah, the wedding canopy, to the IDF enlistment base, or to the birthing room. I'm sorry I couldn't help you in those most difficult moments."
Can you imagine watching your mother being stabbed to death and being unable to assist? These are not stories that you're going to hear on the big media outlets,
No, they're not.
because we want to blame Israel for
Yeah.
defending themselves.
Yeah,
And
right.
blame Israel for her dying.
Okay, and this one comes from the Jerusalem Post. It's kind of attached to this last story. Israeli Deputy Foreign Minister Zipi Hotovli wrote an op-ed for the Wall Street Journal today, Monday. Hotovli wrote that the Palestinians continue to utilize the disproportionately massive amount of foreign aid they receive in order to support terrorism against Israel. According to Hotovli, the Palestinian Authority's payment of stipends to the families of convicted terrorists should make the international community rethink its donation policies. The Palestinian regime in Ramallah pays monthly stipends of between $400 and $3,500 to terrorists and their families, the latter of which is more than 5 times the average monthly salary of a Palestinian resident, the deputy minister wrote. We still have to get that article to the people about the difference in the living conditions of the very wealthy in the West Bank
Palestinians.
and the very poor. Because the money that we're sending to aid isn't getting to them.
No.
No, that's why Arafat died the second world's richest man. He kept the money for himself.
Yeah.
There's a lot of facts that you people need to know that the media is distorting against Israel.
Or ignoring.
They pretty well ignore it. Okay, we have another article that came from Fox News. This just out today. A new video released by the ISIS terror group late Sunday shows 9 of the extremists who carried out the November 13th attacks in Paris beheading and shooting captives. It also shows them training with weapons while plotting the carnage that left 130 dead in the French capital. The 17-minute video provided online by the Site Intelligent Group, which monitors jihadi websites, shows the extent of the planning that went into the multiple attacks in Paris. The video did not specify where the 9 men were filmed, but it is believed to have been in ISIS-controlled territory in Syria.
A narrator describes the terrorists as 9 lions of the caliphate who were mobilized from their lairs to make a whole country, France, get down on its knees. 7 of the militants, including a 20-year-old who was the youngest of the group, were filmed standing behind bound captives described as apostates who were either beheaded or shot. 7 of the attackers, 4 from Belgium and 3 from France, spoke fluent French. The 2 others spoke Arabic.
Among those who can be seen in the video are Bilal Hadfi, who blew himself up outside France's National Stadium on that deadly Friday night. Another terrorist, Sami Amimour, says as he holds a captive's head aloft, soon on Champs-Élysées. He was raised in a Paris suburb near the French National Stadium, one of the targets of the November 13th attack. The video also contains threats against the United Kingdom, showing images of London landmarks like the Tower Bridge and St. Paul's Cathedral, and claiming extremists are ready to strike anytime, anywhere.
As is the case in other ISIS propaganda, the video tries to drive a wedge between European Muslims and their governments. The terrorists say it is religious duty to join them and threaten more attacks in Europe. The footage closes with one of the militants holding a severed head and footage of British Prime Minister David Cameron giving a speech with a text in English warning that whoever stands with the unbelievers will be a target for our swords.
If only Christians could be not that ugly, but that committed to serving the Lord our God. The world would be such a different place. You know, there might not even be Islamist terrorists if we were that committed.
That's probably true.
And now it looks like we've got a story from Charisma News and CBN about Pastor Saeed Abedini, who is in good physical, spiritual, and emotional health just a few days after his release from an Iranian prison. Representative Robert Pettinger told CBN News. Pettinger met with Abedini Tuesday afternoon. The 2 men talked and prayed together for about an hour and a half. His spirits are great. He looked in good physical health, Pettinger said. I think he's come out of it very well. Mentally, physically, emotionally, he's engaged.
The North Carolina congressman flew to Landstuhl, Germany, as part of a delegation to meet Abedini and 3 other freed Americans. He's been a public advocate for the pastor's release since 2013. For the most part, Saeed was kept in isolation, But in the past 6 months, the Iranians began to give him better food and treatment. Pittenger believes that's because they planned to release him once the Obama administration's nuclear deal with Iran was finalized. I think the Iranians had probably predetermined they were going to be releasing him, so they took good care of him, I think, the last 6 months, Pittenger said. I think they treated him very well and fed him well to make sure he was fattened up and looking good.
Abedini is unsure of his immediate plans, but is seeking God's will for his life and his future. The Abedini family faces difficulties upon his return. Nagme admits there will be difficult days ahead as the family seeks a time of healing. The reality is that we're not heroes. Jesus is the only hero. He is our only example, and we are broken people with issues, she told CBN News hours after her husband's release.
Pittenger took a pastoral tone when addressing the circumstances. He said, "It stands in the hands of a healing Jesus. Jesus is in the business of reconstruction," he said. "We come as imperfect vessels to the throne and the grace of God. I know he desires to be with his family and be right by the Lord and be right by them. And as I said, this is a healing process." Earlier, Pittenger told CBN News that this phase is very critical for the released prisoners.
They've come out of a very oppressive environment where they were, for the most part, left in isolation, had a lot of mental torture, and this will take time to process out and help them, he said. They've been in a very demonic atmosphere, and it's been very oppressive, he said. The transition in their life is going to be extraordinary. So just being able to communicate, be back with their families, is going to be a real challenge. It's going to be a very hard process.
Pittenger has been called for Abedini's freedom since 2013. Evangelist Franklin Graham, who heads the Charlotte-based Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, played a role in enlisting him to the cause. Franklin has been a good friend of Mrs. Abedini throughout this period. I was encouraged to get involved because of Franklin and also because of Dr. David Chadwick in Charlotte, the pastor of Forest Hill Church. So my interest is there because they asked me to get involved, Pittenger said. I'm going to ask you to pray for those families to be able to make that transition back to normalcy.
Yeah. Talk about PTSD.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. And now it's a real challenge for, like, say, the children of Pastor Saeed and his wife, you know?
Yeah, right.
Because they remember a dad who was one way, and until Jesus completely heals him in every aspect, emotionally, mentally, Daddy's going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, he is.
So, yes, they definitely need our prayer support now, more than probably ever before.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got some ICEJ news briefs. It looks like Israel, as Mom mentioned, has been preparing for a week of intense winter weather. High winds, rain turning to snow, and extreme cold temperatures greeted many Israelis when they woke up Monday morning, with weather conditions only deteriorating going into the afternoon. Heavy snow had already fallen on the Golan Heights over the weekend, with the capital and other areas in the central mountains forecast to receive a several centimeters starting Monday evening. The Jerusalem municipality reassured residents that it has taken extensive measures to prepare for the winter weather. Meanwhile, the Sea of Galilee is reported to have risen 20 centimeters since the beginning of the rainy season, although it's still 4.04 meters below full capacity. Rats.
Israeli political leaders face challenges from within. Israel's political scene was rocked over the weekend by high-profile public spats between the leaders of both the ruling party and the opposition. Prime Minister Netanyahu was under attack from his right flank as Bayit Yehudi faction in his coalition reacted angrily to the forced eviction of Jewish families Friday from 2 homes in the West Bank city of Hebron. Netanyahu declared Sunday that the families would be allowed to move back into the buildings as soon as legal questions about their ownership were cleared up. But this did not mollify Bayit Yehuda MKs, who vowed to refuse to cooperate with the coalition until the matter is resolved to their satisfaction. Meanwhile, Zionist Union leader Isaac Herzog was in damage control mode Sunday after reports emerged that he was considering joining the coalition following recent comments he made appearing to distance himself from plans for a two-state solution. The comments and resulting speculation set off a wave of criticism from his left flank.
I bet they did.
I bet.
And it looks like life is becoming more uncomfortable for Jews in the diaspora. And if you don't know what the diaspora is, that's the dispersion. It's the
Anywhere
Jewish
outside Israel.
the Jewish people who still live outside Israel. Advocacy groups in the U.S. released numbers recently showing a large increase in the number of anti-Semitic incidents reported by Jewish students on university campuses. Many observers blame the boycott, divestment, and sanctions, that's the BDS campaign, against Israel for generating a hostile environment against Jewish students. Meanwhile, Israel's Diaspora Affairs Minister Naftali Bennett told the cabinet during the weekly meeting on Sunday morning that anti-Semitism in Europe has reached unprecedented levels, leading to the largest surge ever in immigration from Western European countries to Israel. At the same time that Muslim anti-Semitism against Jews is worsening, anti-Semitism seeks to quietly find a safe place in academic buildings, under roofs of organizations dealing with alleged human rights, and there is a worsening of incitement and hatred, Bennett said.
Israel's cabinet appoints an Arab woman to a senior post. The Israeli cabinet unanimously approved the appointment of attorney Miriam Kabha, an Arab-Israeli woman, as National Commissioner for Equal Employment Opportunities within the Economy Ministry during Sunday's meeting. This is an appointment with high symbolic and practical importance. We have two major missions in the field of employment: to increase employment among Arab women and ultra-Orthodox men. This appointment will serve to achieve a national goal. Miriam Kaba is capable and deserving, and I wish her success, said Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
And it looks like Israel-U.S. relations remain close despite tensions. U.S. President Barack Obama agreed on Friday to attend this week's ceremony at the Israeli Embassy in Washington, D.C., to mark International Holocaust Memorial Day, in a move hailed by Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu as a sign of continued strength in the U.S.-Israel relationship. In related news, U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Dan Shapiro, gave an interview Monday to Army Radio in which he acknowledged that the timing of his criticism of Israel's policies in the West Bank, coming as they did on the same day an Israeli woman was murdered in her home in the settlement of Otniel, was not ideal. He added, however, a reiteration of some of the criticism, including the position that Israel's policies are leading to a binational state, which he said is not in anyone's interest.
A two-state solution is not in Israel's interest. We have an article from ICEJ, and Chinese President Xi Jinping emerged from his meeting with Iran's leadership over the weekend, announcing his support for a Palestinian state and the signing of several trade deals with Iran, which are taken together meant to boost trade between the two countries to $600 billion over the next 10 years. Among Western countries, U.S. policies toward Iran are worse and more hostile. It makes Iran pursue developments of ties with independent states, said Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry was in Saudi Arabia over the weekend, where he assured his host that Washington is not abandoning them in favor of closer relations with Iran. The comments came even as Iran announced that it had arrested around 100 people in connection with the attack on Saudi Arabia's embassy in Tehran earlier this month, although the announcement did not appear to mollify Saudi officials.
Who show no signs of restoring diplomatic relations.
Right.
Well,
Interesting time we live in.
You know, it's interesting because we're going to get to see the return of Messiah.
We
Yay!
are. Even so, come quickly, Lord Jesus.
That's
Pray
right.
for the peace of Jerusalem.
See you Wednesday.
you.